Cancer
So
in
then,
children.
children. Okay.
So pediatric is children.
Okay.
Basically, you treat or consult children cases on health issues.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. You're very welcome, Doc. It's good to have you with us.
Thank you very much.
Good to have you. All right. So we understand that there are activities leading up to sickle cell awareness have started already.
Yes.
Okay. So give us some updates or some awareness. What is going on? What is sickle cell, and why should we be aware of it?
Thank you very much for your questions. Sickle cell is actually a blood disease that a child inherits from both parents, and the child lives with that disease for life. In December 2022, on 22nd of December 2008, the United Nations General Assembly recognized sickle cell as a public health problem and decided that June 19 of every year will be a sickle cell awareness day. So all over the world, on the 19th of June, sickle cell disease is recognized and is celebrated all over the world, and the awareness of this disease is being brought to fore to the particularly to the general public, because the truth is that sickle cell disease can be prevented.
Oh, it can be prevented.
It can be prevented.
Okay, hold on first. Let's start from the beginning. What is sickle cell disease?
I said it is an inherited blood disease, which means
blood disease. Okay.
Yes, which means that the child inherits the disease from both parents. And for a parent to be able to have a child that has sickle cell disease, it means that both parents are carriers of an abnormal gene. Now, the normal gene is the AA gene.
Okay.
Anything outside of the AA gene is an abnormal gene. So for a person who is carrying a normal gene, which is the A, and an abnormal gene, which is S, that individual is considered a carrier. Or if you also carry a normal gene, which is A, and an abnormal gene, which is C, you're also considered a carrier. Now, when two carriers, that is the mother and the father, when they marry and they have children, for every pregnancy that is conceived in that marriage, there's a 25% chance that that baby will be a sickle cell disease child.
I am a bit confused, and I'm sure some of our listeners are also confused.
That's why she's here.
Now, I want to break down this question so you could break down the answer to a very layman understanding. We usually understand, and I think all this you mentioned, AC, AS, AAs, these are genotypes, right?
Yes.
And these are what leads to sickle cell anemia.
I said the normal genotype in all human beings is genotype AA.
Okay, so if you have AA and you have AS, that's like a normal genotype.
No. Once you have S, or you have anything outside of A,
okay,
you now have an abnormal genotype.
Okay.
And for the AS person, he has one normal and one abnormal.
Oh.
I'm feeling weird.
Sorry, are you AS?
So I am actually feeling a bit weird because are you saying I'm not normal?
I'm not saying you're not normal, but I'm saying that you are a carrier of an abnormal gene.
Yes. Okay, now let's get down to serious issues now. Since I'm carrying an abnormal gene and also a normal gene.
Yes.
People always have this problem of, that means I can't get married to someone who is AS. I can't have anything. I can't have a baby for someone who is AA, because you said this baby don't just manufacture this sickle cell.
No.
They get it from the people.
Both parents.
Yeah, that's both parents. People who carried this.
Who are carriers.
Yes. So, in a very simple nutshell, how do you prevent kids from getting AA? Just like you said, it is preventable. So how do you prevent someone who is carrying an abnormal gene and someone who is also carrying an abnormal gene from transferring it into their unborn baby?
The easiest way of preventing sickle cell disease children from being born is for two carriers not to marry. That is the easiest. And I use that being the easiest in the sense that if in relationships we both check our genotypes and we become aware that we are both carriers, it is easier at that time to terminate that relationship. Yes. And says, oh, sorry, that means that we have a high chance. But there are also couples who feel that, oh, this love is so strong. I really do want to marry this person.
Yes.
They have another way they can avoid having children with sickle cell, but it's extremely expensive.
Okay.
That option is only for those who can afford to go to see a gynecologist, where they will take the egg from the man, take the egg from the woman, take the sperm from the man, and look at each of those sperm. The ones that carry the S gene, they will discard, and then the ones that carry the A gene, they will take and then match the man's and the woman's own
Together.
before they now put it into the woman for that fetus to start growing. How many Nigerians can?
What is this process called? There should be a
It's
name
in
for
vitro.
it. In vitro.
In vitro,
okay.
yes, you have to do in vitro, but before that in vitro, the eggs are selected.
Wow.
So you have to go to the hospital and make yourself available for them to select your eggs.
The eggs that, yes, because when you produce that egg, they through a process, they look at the genotype of each of the eggs. And the ones that are S, they can say, okay, this is S, we won't take this one. This is carrying A, we'll take this one. And look at the mother's one too. This is carrying S, they won't take this one, we'll take carry A. So the ones that are the A, they now fuse it together before they now implant it into the mother.
Okay.
So that is the one of the way of subverting having children that have sickle cell disease.
Okay.
There's also another way, which we call amniocentesis, prenatal diagnosis. When the woman is pregnant, you can collect some fluid inside some tissues or some fluid from inside the baby's amniotic sac, go and test it to determine the baby's genotype. Now, when you determine the baby's genotype and you determine that this baby is an SS baby, you now have the dilemma of the choice. Do I continue with this pregnancy or do I terminate it?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's a difficult choice to make.
It is a very difficult choice. So that's why I said at the beginning that the very easiest way to go about preventing it is ensuring that couples at the time of relationship check their genotypes. And when they do their genotypes and they find that both of them are carriers, that is the time to take this decision.
Please, can you tell us the genotypes that are compatible for marriage?
Well, if an AA marries an AS or an AC person, he's not likely to have a sickle cell child.
Okay.
Because for the person who is AA, he only has the good A to donate at any time to the offspring.
Yeah.
But for the person who is AC, he can either donate the A or the S or the C, depending on what the person is carrying. Because there are some people that are AC, there are some people that are AS. Both of them are carriers. But like I said, since one couple has only A to give, so that A is there. So the child can choose to take any of that, whether the C or the S or whatever is there, and combine it with his A.
Okay.
It's still the worst he becomes is that he's a carrier.
Yes. Okay.
The worst that child becomes is a carrier. But a lot of the children will end up as AA. But some children will take that abnormal C or abnormal S together with the normal A and become carriers. So such relationships, a sickle cell disease child will not be born, but some carrier children may be born.
So AA plus AS is AA plus AS or AC is a tick.
Yes.
AS plus AS is a no.
It's definitely a no.
SS
Because SS plus
Go ahead, Doc.
okay.
Go ahead. I'm trying to calculate. You said AA plus AS is a tick.
Yes.
AS plus AS is a no.
It's a no.
Any other one again that we need to know?
AC.
AC.
AC plus AA is a tick.
Okay.
But AC and AC, the CC disease is not it's not in the same league with sickle cell.
Okay.
They don't have the same severity and the same type of disease that children with sickle cell have, so they can go through life normally and not have too many problems. That's the C.
But
Okay, the SC, a child who is, because the sickle cell disease there are so many variants. The commonest variant in our society is the SS.
Okay.
But another variant is the SC.
Okay.
And that SC variant is actually slightly milder than the SS variant. And that SC variant is very common in the southwest. So if you go to places like Ibadan, you have a lot of C and a lot of SC children.
Why is it regional now?
Well, the gene is like the migration of the gene, if it followed some where the mutant gene, because this S is a mutant gene. Where this mutation started, nobody really knows. But you find that the mutations occurred in different parts of Africa, almost at the same time. And because of population migration, today I'm in Benin. Tomorrow I can be in Republic of Benin. I can be in Togo. I can be in anywhere. So populations migrated over the years, and there was mixing. So this gene migrated with the people as they were mixing up. So we found that a lot of the C gene, when they thought they felt that people feel that the C came from Upper Volta, and they migrated and got as far as the west, but the River Niger did not let them cross. So if you look at across the River Niger, you have very few C gene.
That is in the southeast.
In the south.
In the south, yes.
Okay.
Compared to what you get in the west.
Okay.
So you see a lot of it in places like Ibadan and all the southwest countries. As you are moving, further into the south. The prevalence of the C gene is reducing. But the S gene, like I said, which is more prevalent, is in almost in all parts of most parts of Africa. The S is the SS form is the very most common form.
Okay.
And that is the one that's and the most common and the most severe.
Okay. So someone who has SS, SS is sickle cell.
Yes.
And SC, what is it called?
It's also sickle cell.
Oh, it's also sickle cell.
I said that's variant types of sickle cell.
Okay.
SS is the most common type, but SC is also a sickle cell. S beta thalassemia, S beta thalassemia major, S beta thalassemia. So many variants.
Okay.
But so we deal with commonly here the SS and the SC.
So someone who already has this,
yes,
unfortunately,
yes,
it's not either SS or SC.
Yes.
Is it there's some I call them myths or stories surrounding people who are SS? They say, they don't live beyond 21 years of age, or they die young.
Because you mentioned that you can live long, and that's in reaction to that.
So please, would like you to dispel the myths around that, and then how someone who has this already can manage them. Can manage their lives.
Yeah, there were really a lot of myths concerning this, because it's actually been there for ages. In fact, communities gave them different names, because when they see children that were having all these crises, children were there. In fact, in this part of the world, we're calling them Ogbanje.
Ogbanje, yes.
And Abiku.
Yeah.
That was their name, because they don't live beyond the early infancy. Within 5 years of life, most of them have died.
Okay.
So that was really the case. But fortunately, over the years, we didn't understand sickle cell disease. That's the truth. We didn't understand what it meant. We just knew that they had this disease, they have this crisis, they have, then after sometimes they die. And a lot of our children were really dying of sickle cell disease. Those who had sickle cell disease were not living between the age of 2 and 5 years. They were dying so fast. But over the years, thank God, so much has been learned, and so much has been has come to the fore in managing sickle cell disease children. And now we know so much more than what we knew 20 years ago. And this has totally changed the outcome of what happens to a sickle cell disease individual. So now a child, if a child is born today and we want to know the child's genotype, you can do the genotype, and on the day the child is born and determine that this child is sickle cell. But once you know that this person is sickle cell disease person, what do? We enroll them into what we call the comprehensive healthcare clinic. And that clinic is supposed to be a well clinic, where the sickle cell disease child comes, regularly for his checkup. And it is at this clinic that actually we teach the mothers what to do at home to ensure that this child maintains a good and normal life.
Okay.
For example, 20 years ago, we didn't know that one of the things that was making the sickle cell disease children look like they were so skinny, stunted and malnourished was the fact that, they were just eating like every other child eats, 3 times a day, 2 times a day. But when we have realized that, for example, the blood of a sickle cell disease child lives for only 20 days, 10 to 20 days, that blood has died. A normal person's blood lives about 100 days to 120 days. Which means that the bone marrow of a sickle cell disease child is having to be working so often to keep producing blood to maintain that child and keep that child alive. While a bone marrow of a normal person does not have to do that work more than 3 times a year. But a sickle cell disease child is doing this 4 times in a month. So you can imagine you are eating 3 times. And that 3 times you are eating, your bone marrow has to keep producing, and it's producing all these things based on the food that it collects.
And that's what makes them
because it's
weak.
malnourished.
So by the time the bone marrow has collected everything to produce blood, what will the child have to grow? To grow. There's nothing left.
So you're advising
here
eat
we
more
advise them eat more food. In fact, we actually tell them our sickle cell disease child, when we start saying how they eat, we say make sure you feed this child 6 to 8 times a day.
Okay.
6 to 8 times a day. So that means that the child is eating round the clock, like every 3 hours.
Okay.
And since 2003, when we started this comprehensive care, I mean, you need to see the kind of children we turned out. We changed totally their life, to the extent that the parents actually started thinking that the children have been cured of their sickle cell. I told them, no, we have only managed the disease. We have not cured it.
Okay.
It's still there.
Okay.
But because we have learned so much about what the disease does, we have also learned all the things that also mitigate the disease. So all like the frequent crises they were having, almost always in the hospital with one crisis, my leg is paining me, my back is paining me. We found as simple as water was a life-saving thing for a sickle cell disease child. And I tell the mothers, even if this child doesn't want to eat that means it won't grow. But water is the life of a sickle cell disease child. And we find that when they keep drinking water to ensure that their circulation and everything is flowing, they have crisis less often. Sometimes I have sickle cell disease children that 5 years, 6 years, they don't have crisis one day. And I'll be wondering, this child has not complained of crisis. Which kind of, And the mother tells me, yes, doc, my child is drinking water. And I tell a sickle cell disease child, everywhere you go, you must have your water on you. You must have a bottle of water. No 30 minutes should go that you didn't drink.
Okay.
So this crisis we are talking about now, it's the pain, the body pains and all that. Because most times when people hear sickle cell carriers always have crisis, you might not be there to experience this crisis, but maybe a lot of pictures will be in people's head. Oh, you're going to fall down, different kind of pictures, especially when you have a very wild imagination. So I will want you to change that imagination for them. When we talk about sickle cell crisis, what exactly are those crises? Because you mentioned, I've seen a couple. I have a friend who visits the hospital frequently because of pains, complaints of pain. I had my crisis last night. I have to go to the hospital. So I usually think I can't explain my imagination, but I want you to explain those crises. What exactly are those crises? What do they go through when going through that crisis?
You see, the abnormality in sickle cell disease is that the red cell, the blood that flows through our body, you know that our vein carries blood through all parts of our body. And this blood is supposed to flow freely without any form of obstruction, so that it can deliver oxygen to our tissues, so our tissues will function. That is the only function of the red cell. That is what the blood does. But in the case of sickle cell blood, the shape of the blood, once it has reached the tissue and it has delivered oxygen, it changes its shape from a normal O shape to a banana shape, which is called the sickle shape. I call it banana shape. It now assumes that banana shape. Now, not only does it assume that banana shape, it now also becomes a bit more rigid, stiffer than the normal cell. A soft cell passes through any opening very easily. But when something is stiff, you need a lot more force for it to pass. So in this stiff formation that it assumes, when it gets into a very small vein, it now blocks that vein, and it's no longer able to pass.
Okay.
It now obstructs. Now, once an obstruction has occurred, you remember that these tissues, what it was doing was it was trying to carry oxygen to these tissues so that these tissues can function. So once that blockage occurs, those tissues don't receive oxygen anymore. And that pain that child is complaining is actually a message. The tissue is still telling you that I am dying, blood is not getting to me. I am dying, blood is not getting to me. In medical terms, we will say it is an infarctive pain. Blood is not getting to a place, so that place is dying. And that pain that your child is telling that it feels is the tissue telling you that I am not getting the oxygen I'm supposed to get, so I'm dying. So that's what we call the pain crisis. So I remember that blood flows through all parts of our body. So this obstruction can occur anywhere. So if it occurs in the bones, that's when they're telling you it's my bone, or my waist, or my leg, or my hand. But sometimes it also occurs in the chest, and they are not able to breathe. And that is the one that is very, very life-threatening. Sometimes it also occurs in the brain, and they have a stroke. Yes. Sometimes it occurs in the penis, and the penis just, the child just develops an erection, a painful erection that refuses to come down. So this event is what we call the vaso-occlusive event. Vaso-occlusive means that the vessel has been occluded by the sickle cell. That is what we call the vaso-occlusive crisis. So that is one of the forms of the crisis, and that is actually the commonest form of crisis that sickle cell children experience. But there are also other, forms that are not as bad as this vaso-occlusive event. Like we talk of the hemolytic crisis. Sometimes you see their eyes. Sometimes for some sickle cell disease children, their eyes can remain white. Some will just have a tinge of jaundice. But when you have the hemolytic crisis, you see the eyes are very yellow. That means that there's something that is also happening in their system that's making their blood to break down more rapidly than before, and it's making them to have this event. Sometimes their bone marrow can just say, "Oh, I'm tired of working self. How do you every day produce, and today I'm not working anymore." And for the next 2 weeks, the bone marrow stops producing blood. That's what we call the aplastic crisis. That can also occur. So there are various forms of crisis, but the most common one that brings them to attention of the hospital and makes everybody run up and down is the one we call the vaso-occlusive crisis, of which the pain crisis is part of the vaso-occlusive event. Because like I've told you that it can be the brain. The brain will not tell you it has pain, but you find that the child wants to lift his hand. Some of my patients, if they were eating on the dining table, and the mother suddenly realized that the child could not lift her hand, and she just called her. She go in there, and I said, this child is having a stroke. Come to the hospital right now. In those days, once such an event is happening, the child is likely to just have the stroke, and all of us, we're helpless. But now we can actually prevent strokes in sickle cell disease children. Those are some of the events that have evolved over the years in the care of sickle cell disease. We can prevent strokes. And that kind of child, if you bring that child in as soon as that event is going to happen, and we are able to do an exchange blood transfusion for that child, you find that stroke will just disappear.
Okay, now you've talked about exchange blood transfusion. We'll come to the religious beliefs and all of this. Okay, there are some religious people that say they don't take
Can't
blood.
take blood, yes.
So, but that is going to be the second question. While you were talking, messages have been coming in. Please, if you have any message for Doctor, do well to send it to the SMS line 0807 400 9076. As she's speaking, we will be giving her the messages. So this one came in from within. It says to ask you if genotype change is possible. There are claims of medical and miraculous changes after prayer sessions.
I'll be the first person to tell you that there's nothing God cannot do. God has said that there's nothing that is impossible for him to do. That is the truth. His nature as God is miracle. So I believe in miracles. But I will also tell you that you have to, for it to happen, you have to have the faith to bring it to pass. So God can do that. There is absolutely no doubt about that.
This is
religious you speaking.
So
yes.
What about the doctor in you speaking now?
The doctor in me that is speaking will tell you, if you have finished praying, go back and check that genotype.
Okay. So are you saying that I want to be very realistic and practical right now. Let's do away with this religion now. Medically speaking, is it possible for a genotype to have a change?
Totally possible.
Okay.
And that is one of the things. That is one of the things that has changed. The sickle cell phase of sickle cell in quotes. Now we have a procedure called the bone marrow transplant.
Okay.
And that bone marrow transplant simply removes. Because it's your bone marrow that produces your red cells.
Red blood cells.
Yes, the bone marrow produces your red blood cells. Now, if you wipe off the sickle cell's bone marrow and you implant it with a marrow from somebody, a donor that is not sickle cell, that person that's the recipient that adopts the donor's genotype. So you can transform an SS to an AA. Now, the only catch is in this is that you have achieved what we call a clinical cure. A clinical cure means that his bone marrow is now producing AA cells, so he no longer has sickle cell crisis, sickle cell disease. But all the other cells, because our genotype, all our cells carry our gene and whatever.
Okay.
So if that person's in sperm or ovary is still in existence, his sperm and ovary is still carrying the SS gene.
How do you handle that?
So
Science has not advanced to that level yet.
well, maybe gene therapy will change the gene in all the cells. But in this case of bone marrow transplant, it's only the bone marrow and the red cells that has been transformed. All the information in all the other cells are still carrying the sickle cell gene.
The white blood cell, sorry, the bone marrow now
Yes.
is producing blood that
Blood.
is no longer sickle cell, that no longer
Yes.
has sickle cell.
Yes.
But the blood that has already been produced before, is it going to be drained out of the person's body?
What happens to it?
What happens is that, in the process of bone marrow transplant, remember that, like I said your red cells have a lifespan.
Okay.
The normal person's red cell has a lifespan of 100 days to 120 days, after which it goes.
Okay.
That's the natural programmed death. That's the way God timed it. So in 100 to 120 days, that's the old red cell must go. So if you are transplanted, by the time if you had your transplant, the blood you carried to start this thing, in another 120 days,
Is dead.
it's all of it. It's gone.
Okay.
So you find that in about 6 months, all the blood that is probably in your circulation will be the blood from the bone
The
marrow.
new bone marrow.
Yes.
Okay, but that's got to be a very expensive process. Bone marrow
It's
transplant.
extremely expensive.
Okay.
And when it started, we started with about 3 million, now 5 million, and we're now talking, I'm sure now with the cost of things, to be a lot more than 5 million. And unfortunately, for the majority of our sickle cell disease children, individuals, that is not affordable. And not only that, there is actually, some people also say that there should be a criteria, because not all sickle cell disease individuals have the terrible experiences associated with sickle cell. There are some that go through life with quite mild experiences. A couple will tell me, I met a mother 2 weeks ago. She told me that I have 2 children who are sickle cell, but my son has never had a crisis. And I said, in my mind, are you sure? He said, yes, he has sickle cell. And really, that is the experience of, if you go to places like Saudi Arabia, if you go to places like India, where they have sickle cell individuals, and in those population of people, they also have another type of blood in addition to that sickle cell blood, which is called the hemoglobin F. The hemoglobin F is what we are born with. It's called the fetal hemoglobin. When we are all born at birth, we carry that fetal hemoglobin. That's why when a child is born with sickle cell, nothing shows on his body that he has sickle cell. But when he gets to 6 months, when that hemoglobin F would have worn off, and is now producing the hemoglobin A or S or whatever it is, that is when the sickle cell begins to show. So for most children with sickle cell, they don't begin to start having symptoms until after the age of 6 months. The first 6 months of life, that hemoglobin F, which is what they are born with, which is called the fetal hemoglobin, protects them totally from all these signs of sickle cell disease. Now, in Saudi Arabia, India, they have a high level of hemoglobin F in their circulation. And that high level of hemoglobin F protects them from having crisis like the SS children have. Our own SS here have crisis. Now, there's a drug that was also discovered a couple of years ago, which is now, commonly used in managing sickle cell disease, which is called hydroxyurea. Now, one of the functions of that hydroxyurea is to prime the bone to start producing hemoglobin F again.
The new blood it was producing when you gave birth.
When you were born.
Okay.
So when it produces a high level of hemoglobin F, now hemoglobin F does not combine with the S to sickle. So if you can reduce the population of hemoglobin S in your circulation and increase the population of either A or F or any other good blood, you find that you have less chances of having crisis or sickling. So that is why those people like the Indians, the Saudi Arabians, who have naturally high levels of hemoglobin F, they have mild sickle cell disease. And people who have mild sickle cell disease, but I really want to go and do a transplant for that kind of person.
Wow.
Okay, that brings me to another myth we want to talk about. Remember, you mentioned how this SS is regional and mostly Africans. Now, there is a very big myth that it's only the blacks that suffer from sickle cell. But I'm glad you mentioned it already that in India, Saudi Arabia, we have people who suffer. But it's not as severe, just like you mentioned. It's not as severe as the Africans. So you're basically cleared it. But why are the Indians and the Arabs don't suffer severe crisis like the Africans?
Just also break the myth. Like, I mean, if you go to places like Greece, to places like the Mediterranean countries, they have sickle cell. In Greece and in the Mediterranean, so places like Spain, they have sickle cell there. If you go to Brazil, if you go to Caribbeans, remember the Caribbeans were people that West African people that were carried.
So they may have taken the sickle cell with them.
They did.
So, but the origin
is African.
They were not suffering it now. The Caucasians. I mean, the original aborigines of the land. I mean, Caucasians.
The Caucasians
didn't have it.
So basically, we are saying Africans are the originator of sickle cell.
No, you won't say that because there are so many. Like I said, there are so many types. There are so many. The Saudi Arabia haplotype, or the type that is in Saudi Arabia, is the one I would say is the mild disease. But you know, the various mutations differ in the various communities. But it is not it's not a black disease. Let's get that very clear.
It's not black.
It's not no, because the Mediterranean people are not blacks. The Greece, the Spaniards, the whatever, they're not blacks.
Mediterranean Europe, okay.
The Saudi Arabia people and the Arabs, the Indians, they are Indians, and they're not blacks.
Okay. Now, we mentioned the religious beliefs. You know, so you said something about the blood transfusion and all that. Now, when you're handling people whose religious beliefs prevent them from receiving blood from an external body or an external person, how do you handle that? Does it not pose a challenge?
It's a lot of challenge. It's a lot of challenge because, unfortunately for this child who has sickle cell disease, a blood disease that does not allow him to have a normal packed cell volume. A normal individual's packed cell volume for a guy like you, for example, is about 42 to 44%. For a woman, it's about 36 to 40%. But in a sickle cell disease child, on that normal state, when nothing is happening, it's about 20, 22, 21. You know, it's that low. So it means that he does not have a reserve for it to get lower than that. And unfortunately, when we have malaria on top of sickle cell, and you know that malaria will destroy the red blood cell, that's one of part of it, you know. So it was, or they have any other illness that will further reduce that blood cell. So there are so many things that poses a challenge and make it necessary for you to want to do a transfusion for a sickle cell disease individual. Now, if you have such a parent, you simply cancel them. If this child's heart is not taking it, that because the blood is level is extremely low, he needs this blood transfusion. If you don't allow him to take this blood transfusion, he will die. It's as simple as that. So if you accept that you want this child to die, then that is your own option. But so long as the child is in the hospital with us, and this is what we want to do, I mean, I have had couples, you know, where the mother will say no, the father will, when you finish talking to the father, he will say, okay, tell your wife to go and buy tomato and whatever, or wherever, let her go. Once the father has agreed, he's the head of the home, we'll go ahead and do what we want to do and save the life. The important thing that life must be saved. Life must be saved, and these people must know that life must be. That's in fact. There is a lot of situations. There's no two way around it that it is that blood. For example, I told about a child who's going to have a stroke, or who already has a stroke. The only way to reverse that stroke is an exchange blood transfusion. If you don't do it, you leave that child permanently handicapped. I once had a child several years ago who slept and woke up. The next time when she woke up, she was blind. An 8-year-old child. She had a stroke, and the stroke involved the occipital cortex of her brain, and that is the cortex for vision. She was blind.
Is it reversible?
If we were able to if we had done an exchange blood transfusion then, probably, I don't know. But at that time, we were not even doing exchange blood transfusion for our sickle cell because we didn't know that much. That is why I said that over the years we have learned so many things about that management, and a lot has changed.
So messages are coming in. So let's take messages from the audience because so many people are listening and sending messages. Someone says, unfortunately, most hospitals don't even test a child's gene at birth before discharging a newborn baby. Why? That's a question the person is asking. Is it true actually that most hospitals don't even test a child?
That is totally true because every UBTH does not test. For the simple reason that there is the testing for a newborn is different from the testing that you do for an older child. The older child will use the alkaline electrophoresis. For the newborn, you have to use either isoelectrofocusing or you use the HPLC, and these are more expensive technology. Now, for you to decide that you want to do a newborn screening, you must have actually understand that yes, this sickle cell is something of significant magnitude that mandates
you test
that you must test everybody.
So basically, what you're saying, if AA marry AA, there's no need to test if your child is carrying SS.
AA marry AA,
you are safe.
You are safe. You are basically safe.
Okay, let's because we are pressed for time. This next message says, "Good morning, ma. Please, madam, will you come back again to tell us more about this genotype issue? Because I know you have more to say. I am Peter from Ugbo. So you can answer Peter as quickly as possible before we go over to the next message."
Well, I'm always available, to give counseling. So if I'm invited again.
All right, no problem.
Sure.
And we will invite you again. Can an 11-year-old use pentaxocine injection and promethazine injection?
Pentazocine is actually for pain, severe pain. And actually those medications should not be given outside of the hospital setting. I usually don't advise that. So if your child has severe pain, please let that child go to the hospital. Sometimes for such severe pain, sometimes we even give morphine. But these are things that should be administered in the hospital.
Okay. This one says, "Good morning, Charles and God's love. I want to thank the doctor for everything they are doing for the children who are sickle cell carriers. Please, for youths who are about to get married, to check their blood group. They should not let love put their children in trouble all their lifetime." From Wilfred from Upper Sakwama.
It's actually true. I have a friend who is consciously married to AS and AS, and I asked her, a journalist, she's well. She said, about. She said, we know about it, but we have to. Like, okay. So I get his point.
I totally agree. If left to me, haven't managed these children for so many years, and haven't seen the struggle. I had a doctor friend who was a sickler, and he died in his 60s. And at a conference when he was talking about this disease, he said that the pain of the pain crisis in a sickle cell disease child is like the bite of 1,000 scorpions. And that day I held my head. I said, what? The bite of 1,000 scorpions? If one scorpion bites you, the pain that you will feel. And if somebody who is experiencing is telling you that it's as if 1,000 scorpions beat you, you know how terrible that kind of situation is. You don't want to make anybody go through that.
All right. Doc, I have a sister, AS, the husband, AS, and she just gave birth last week. She has done her genotype 3 times because one of the tests was AA. That was why she went ahead with the man. Should she quit the marriage? Straight up question.
No, she should not quit her marriage. She's in a relationship already, and I wouldn't say that they should divorce just so that she would whatever. At this point, she's already there. Any child that she has, she takes it. The only thing I tell them that as soon as any child is born in that kind of relationship, that child should be tested. And as soon as the results are out and the child's genotype is confirmed to be SS, the child should be enrolled in this comprehensive care clinic sickle cell clinic.
This one says, thank you, doctor. Let all the religious houses preach against AS marrying each other. Thanks, Joe from Ekemara. Thank you, Joe, for your advice. Quickly, I think we're squeezing at 1 or 2 calls. All right, the phone lines are open now. I think I've exhausted the messages. 0706 263 9275 or 0903 939 4427. The last line is 0812 178 9154. When you call, keep it short, keep it simple, and go straight to the point. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Pastor Robert. I'm calling from the.
All right, Pastor, go ahead.
I want to appreciate what is happening in Nigeria now, particularly this security vote and constituency vote.
Sorry, off. That's not what we're talking about. Okay, please, when you do call, stick to what you're talking about, please. It's sickle cell awareness we're talking about. The doctor has been talking about sickle cell awareness. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning.
Okay, you want to call us back?
Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. Nice topic. God bless that doctor you have there. I just have to part because I was sharing tears when she said the pain of
tell us your name. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
My name is Musa. I'm calling from South.
All right, go ahead quickly. Musa, go ahead.
When she said the pain of a sickle cell child is more than 1,000 bites of a scorpion. That alone is a message to any young boy or girl who thinks that love is an ultimate thing for a marriage. I have my kids today. When you see your child injuries, as a father, you know the pain that you pass through when that child is not sleeping. Then just imagine a sickle cell child passing through such things. So God bless that doctor. Thank you for this topic. God bless KUFM. God bless you.
God bless you too, no sir. God bless you. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Faith. I'm calling from GRA.
Faith from GRA, go ahead.
Can the doctor please highlight some things that an intending couple that are both AS can do so that they can be married? I've heard things like IVF or something.
Okay. All right, Doc, you have
1 minute.
1 minute to highlight it because you're out of time already.
Because I know a lot of people also will key into this question.
They cannot give up their love quickly. Please go ahead, Doc.
Well, I've said that for couples who intend to marry and are both carriers, they can visit a fertility clinic where the egg from the man, from the woman, and the sperm from the man is examined, and the egg that is carrying the S gene is removed, and the one that is carrying the A gene is accepted. And for both the man, the sperm and the ovum, you select only the A1, and then you fuse them together and then transplant into the woman to continue as the distance. That is the option.
So
Is it done in UVTH?
How much are we looking at?
Wait first now.
Let her know. Let's ask her the
First of
question.
all, we have to know if it's done in UVTH because I'm sure she has attested to some of the things that are not done in UVTH.
It's not. I know that some private facilities in Abuja and probably Lagos. I don't know, but I know of. So
it's not done in UVTH.
But it's not done in.
So how much are we looking at? The price range? How many millions are we looking at here?
If you have maybe like 3 million.
Okay. All right, Faith, you have an idea now. So you know how many, you know whether to do a wedding.
Start saving now. It's either you do a small wedding and save for it, or just forget about it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Magdalene Odu. Thank you very much. I mean, we will have to invite you some other time. That's a promise because people have actually sent in messages. More messages are coming in, but we don't have the time. And the phone lines are still buzzing, but we don't have the time. Thank you. Sickle Cell Awareness Day is June 19th, right?
Yes.
Everybody go and know your genotype because when she came into the office, the first thing she asked me, do you know your genotype? I said, yeah, I know my genotype. I said, on campus, many people don't actually know their genotype. So please do well to know your genotype. Thank you very much, Doc.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
And that's how we end this morning's edition of the program. My name is Charles Oporum.
I am God's Love Orlando. Good morning.
Oh yes, Nasco quality cornflakes are so full of nourishing goodness because they are whole-flaked cornflakes. Whole-flaked cornflakes are made by a natural flaking process that retains all the natural goodness of the whole corn for whole nutrition, whole taste, and whole crunchiness for the whole family. So next time you're eating cornflakes, make sure it's whole-flaked Nasco cornflakes. Nasco corn.